I think because he liked to develop talent. Most promoters promoted, and you know, every now and then they would start somebody out, but Stu liked the idea. Stu was a big fan, big mark for athletes. You know, if you're really strong, you got a really good physique, or you're a really tough guy. Stu liked you know, he was into that because I think that Stu was one of these guys who grew up kind of being a fan of really tough guys, or real you know, guys who could lift a lot, and guys who were really tough, you know, when it came to submission wrestling. So Stu liked, you know, he liked starting guys off, and he, you know, a lot of guys who, you know, were athletes kind of wandering around. You know, Jim Neidhart was a guy like that, you know, kind of a, you know, a world-class shot putter. I don't know exactly where the connection was, but you know, Stu brought him up, or he came up to Calgary, and you know, Stu would take some football players and do that. He would take some lifters. I mean, he started out all kinds of, you know, oddities guys, and you know, the most famous guys obviously that started with Stu were the guys that ended up being the great wrestlers, like you know, Benoit, you know, I guess would be, you know, the most famous, you know, or currently anyway. You know, Dynamite Kid and Davey Boy Smith were really British guys who had already started their career, but they got their break in North America. And you know, a lot of guys also with Stu was when Dynamite hit big. So this is late '70s. Stu opened up his territory to smaller guys, and it was hard for Stu because Stu was a big guys kind of guy too. But when he saw Dynamite and how popular Dynamite was, it opened, you know, they started having the smaller guys like Japan did. It was almost like a mini New Japan, and they had some of the best action anywhere in the world at the time because, you know, with small guys, fast-paced stuff that the American promotions were not doing at all. I mean, I remember, you know, Stampede Wrestling was low production values, but boy, you know, I mean, it was kind of known as territory, you know, really working territory. Bell to bell, Chris Benoit is one of the best wrestlers I've ever seen. Everywhere he's gone, great wrestler. You know, grew up watching Stampede Wrestling and Dynamite Kid, and I mean, this is the other side of Stu. Is you know, he came and, you know, he stayed in Stu's house learning to wrestle, didn't have to pay, you know, Stu or anything like that. They didn't charge him thousands and thousands of dollars, and I mean, you know, Chris never forgot that, and it was, you know, I mean, you know, Stu's almost like a father to him, you know, and he, you know, he wasn't the only one. He was just the one who probably got the farthest, and probably, I would say, wanted it more than anyone else. You know, I mean, he's a great athlete, but what Chris Benoit has, I mean, very few people in wrestling have. You know, I mean, it was just a natural love for wrestling and a desire. You know, you know, I mean, I'm glad he's making a lot of money now, but you know, Chris went all those places and did all those styles, and I don't think it was ever about the money for him. I think it was always about being a great wrestler, and Chris is a perfectionist as a wrestler, very different from a lot of guys. I mean, a lot of wrestlers, you know, they think that you know, their matches are great. You know, Chris will have a great match, you know, and think that it should be better. Eddie Guerrero is also like that. You know, you know, I think that's why they became two of the best, was because of their standards were higher than everyone else as far as like what they set for themselves, as far as in the ring. That's hard to say because Stu was one of those stoic guys that never showed any emotion because he thought that, you know, I kind of understood Stu as a typical gruff, real tough, old-time guy who thought a man always keeps his cool. A man is a tough guy. You know, you beat up, if you torture a man, because he was tortured by the shooters when he was young, and you survive, that makes you a man. And he would torture people. And he, I think in his own mind, it was like, if they survive, that makes them men. And Stu, whatever it was, and obviously you lose your son at the age of 34, you know, I mean, it has to kill you. It's the nature of it. But I mean, you know, and he had other tragedies in family. You know, Dean died young as well, his son Dean. But I had to kill him, but I think he had to keep that public face for everyone, you know, that it didn't kill him.